So he's saying that the last point here is the dir b'tachtonim, which is the base of Mikdash, exemplified, expressed in the base of Mikdash, is dafke through Avodas HaTzadikim, the Avodah of Binyamin, because that's Hamshach Ulamata. Mashenkin the Etzisapche, Mashenkin the Avodah, the Baal Tshuva is really to escape the world, and it's the Avodah V'Iskafia. And there's much arichus in that. Notwithstanding that, Rebbe's Mechadish in this Maimer, that the Avodah V'Isapche is shaykh even by Baal Tshuva, even by someone who's not reached the shleimus of V'Isapche. And the Raya is holding a Pesach Sheni that happens be'emtza in the middle of Svira. The mile of having chometz or matzah imay baboyis, because that's the V'Isapche. Mashenkin Pesach Rishon, which is Iskafi, which is what had to run away from the Ra. And the point being that it's shaykh that the V'Isapche, even in the Inyan Proti, even if, just like Sfiras HaOmer, Pesach Sheni happens in the middle of Sfiras HaOmer, and there's still much work to be done. In terms of the Bidur HaMiddas, it's still shaykh the of Pesach Sheni, the V'Isapche. All to buttress the Rebbe's point that there can be, b'negei the prat zeh, there can be the avodah of the tzaddik Yisapche, even the one who is holding by the avodah of Benyan, even lower than Benyan. So that's where we're in the middle of developing this further. So we started v'hinei atam in Ois test. Let's begin that again. V'hinei atam is eshitzias mitzayim b'beifin diskafia. It's v'rasayim b'beifin disapche. So why is it Yitzias Mitzrayim only Iskafia? And it's V'rasayim, but it's Sapche is ki Yitzias Mitzrayim b'Yitzias Mitzad Yitzrusa de Le'ela. Yitzias Mitzrayim altogether is a gila from above. Gila nimshach milamayla, when the gila comes from above, Shalei the Avedis Adam, without Aveda, in a nimshach b'pnimius kolkach. It's not nimshach b'pnimius, and the best that it can engender is Iskafia. Not an inner pneumistic change. But Sfiras HaOmer, who have this Adam, is Rusa de Latata. The whole Avodah Sfiras HaOmer is the arousal from below, and therefore, Vagilia Nimshach Milamayla Al Yedei Avodas Adam, and that which is elicited above through our Avodah, in brackets, as Rusa de Leila Shal Yedei is Rusa de Latata, so that's the previous. Now the Agam, even though Shagila Shabam Milamayla Naila Yosem Agila Shimshach Avodas Adam, there's a Maila Dafke in the Gili that comes Milamayla higher than a person's Avodah. And that's because Ki HaNivra B'Avidose Yochel Hagia Rak Ad Shorshe. And Nivra can only reach and cannot go beyond his own source. And the Raya from the Mayan of Ein Eitam, that since, right, the Gemara brings a Raya that Ein Eitam has to be 23 amas high, because it supplied water for the mikveh on top of the Shar Hamayim, which was 20 yamas. The mikveh is enough for the 3 yamas. So, and the water was able to rise to that point, is a raya that Ein Eitam is at least 23 yamas high, if not higher, but certainly 23 yamas high. Because, illustrating the point, that the water could not rise higher than its level. So if it rose to that level, then its shayrish from where the water comes has to be at least the same level, if not higher. So that's the chesodin of avodah which comes to avodas adam. It's only limited to the shayrish of the person, the shayrish of the neshama. And likewise, translating this in Yitzias Mitzrayim is opposed in contrast to Sfiras HaOmer. So that was Milamayla. That's an uncompromised Gilui higher than Shedesh Anivroi. and evil malach, and so on. But the Chodesh Nikra b'Shem Chodesh Ziv, an year is called the month of Chodesh. That's how it's called in Nach, the month of the Ray, conveying also that ki agilu shenimshach b'Chodesh Zeh ha'ora bilvad, as opposed to the Etzem, which is nimshach and Chodesh Nisan. In Chodesh Iyar, what we are mamshich throughout our avodah is only ha'ora. He adds in brackets via shleima. So that's in addition to what we're saying now, that which we elicit through avodah is lower than that which comes mitzad l'mayla itself. So in addition to that, when it comes to Sfiras Ha'omer, this limitation is even more pronounced. The limitation of what? That it is much lower than a gilui that comes milamayla. It is more pronounced in the Avodah Sfiras Ha'omer than Bachlal the Avodah Samata. Why? Because given Shabbat this Sfiras Ha'omer, he achon v'kei the Matan Torah. Because the whole Avodah Sfiras Ha'omer comes before Matan Torah. So for sure, before Matan Torah, our empowerment is much less than post Matan Torah. He's going to say in a moment, but we count the Omer after Matan Torah too. So we hang on a second. But first, if he finishes his point, you follow? Yeah. So therefore, every year, the Gila that we are mamshech, this is actually addressing the question right now. The Gila that we are mamshech every year throughout the Avodah Sfiras Ha'omer, who dugmas, it's still analogous in some way to the Gilish of the Avodah Sa'ovas Lifnei Matan Torah. We're reenacting in some way pre-Matan Torah, post-Matan Torah. So it's therefore the limitation of the Avodah Samata by Sfiras Ha'omer is more pronounced because it represents and it reconnects and in some way is the perpetual model of the Avodah pre-Matan Torah. Kishohisa Hagzeda v'mechitza ben Elyon v'tachtonim b'pri-Matan Torah. There's this inherent division between Elyon and Tachton. So for sure we can't get to Elyon. And this is in some way replaying every year by Sfiras Ha'omer. So pre-Matan Torah, as he concludes his point, is certainly lower. Avodah pre-Matan Torah is lower than Avodah post-Matan Torah. In brackets, even though even though that's the big picture model still remains, that Avodah milamata now is lamata ma'gil shimshach milamayla mitzad atzmai is lower than a gila that comes exclusively unilaterally from above. That's even true now post-Matan Torah, but it is still higher now than an avodah milamata pre-Matan Torah, which in some measure happens every year in Avodah Sfiras Ha'omer. This, by the way, I'm not going to go to Harichas now, but we learned the Maimer, the Matzazu, which the Rabbi gave out. Not Matzazu. The Avodah Moha, the Shalit ben Chochem Moha, Avodah Azois. The Ben Chochem, no? What are the Eidos Chukim Mishpotim Asher Siva Alakinu Eschem? The whole Nukud of the Maim is based on the fact that by the Chochem there's a reenactment of Matan Torah. That's why he says Eschem, because he's speaking mitzad pre-Matan Torah. He's asking Eschem post-Matan Torah. Whatever. In other words, the pre and post-Matan Torah happens every year on a relative level, because Torah is given every year anew on Shavuos. For that matter, every day. Every day there's the pre and post-Matan Torah. So all to say, close the Nakuda, concluding the point being that Sfiras Ha'omer, as part of the Esarusa de Latata, is limited to the Sheresh of Nivroim. And that's why Sfiras Ha'omer happens primarily which month is dominated by Sfiras Ha'omer? It's what? Chedesh HaZiv, it's only a Ziv, including Chedesh Yinikr B'Shem Ziv. Now, another point why Chedesh is called Chedesh Ziv. The first point was it's only Ha'ara compared to the Gilui that comes exclusively Milamayla, which is the full Oyer. Moreover, another allusion to the limitation of the Avodah of the Lamata, and that is that it's called Chedesh Ziv. The Fishabay Noildu Ziv Isoni Oila. Why is it called Chedesh Ziv? Says the Gemara, because in that month, the rays or the beauty of the world were born. Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and Rachel. Rashi Tevis here, he brings Nara 83. That fact is actually they were born in Nisan, the Gemara says. And Tosfos explains, so what does it mean? It's the month they were born, that's when they began to shine. They were born in Nisan, but the Avodah, they're just born. The Avodah is in the second month. But what is the allusion here? The Avodah of the Avos altogether is the Avodah of Ziv. Shah mitzvah shalahem reichasoyu. Their mitzvah is compared to an aroma of a fragrant oil in contrast to the oil itself. The oil itself is the symbol for the Avodah post-Matan Torah. Anachnu shemen tudak shmecha, it's a pasuk. But we are the oil that pours from your name. Because we, meaning post-Matan Torah, the Avodah, we are mamshech atzmos, shemen, the essence itself, whereas pre-Matan Torah, it's only the reyach, the aroma of elikus, as it were. Because so that's the chesed and all. That's the whole chesed of what avodas amata bechlal, and especially the avodas v'desoimer, which is a pre-Matan Torah within post-Matan Torah. And it's the union of ziv. It's only a ha'ara, and it's a reflection of the avodah of the avos, which is also only a ha'ara. Because Mokum, nonetheless, the Maila is when you get ha'odam agili habam l'maylo nirgash beikarak b'nefesh when there's a gila milamaylo, so it's a higher giloi, but who feels it? The neshama. Vein nirgash b'nefesh habamis is not felt by nefesh habamis, because nefesh habamis is not refined and elevated. And even if he would be, he's still nefesh habamis. He's a nivra. And the neshama, which is a chelik, a lekami, mal mamish, can feel the gili milamayla. So therefore, v'lochen avodah shali the gili ze'arak iskafia. So therefore, the avodah doesn't penetrate. It can't, because we're inherently a nivra, and it's only a way of iskafia. The avodah is a hodam, but the gili shim shechal the avodah, but the avodah that a person does, and especially he mentions two things here. There's the avodah, which is the refinement, working himself and breaking himself and refining himself and pushing himself, and befrate the agilish in the avodah, that itself is already a refinement, the avodah itself, and especially the likus that is mamshich through his avodah. So here nasa birur nefesh bahamis. Here there is the birur. Afis chalasa the kedushin, it's transformed to kedushin isapcha. True, it's going to be limited. It's still a limited entity, but it's a wholly limited entity. There's a primitive change isapcha. And he's saying that is the ultimate property that's required to make the world a dirib tachtonim, as it's hapcha. Avodas tzadikim overall. Continue here, we're following. Yeah. Yeah, guys, a nod. Yeah. Just like as we're speaking now, the gilui that brings to the avodah of iskafi isapcha are different. The mile of the gilui that brings to iskafia, it's a higher gilui, right? It's a gilui mila milo, that's its mile. And the maila, the virtue of the gili, which brings engenders the avodah of ishapcha, which nimshach bepnimius ba'adam, it's bepnimius. Shalachin davar miskayim, therefore it endures. So there is similarly ba'gili shenimshach al yedei avodah iskafi ishapcha. There is the nesinas koyach, which differs between Iskafi and Isabche. And then there's the result, the Gili that comes through Avodah Iskafi and Isabche. The mile is a Gili Shemishachal Yidei Avodah Iskafia. The mile of the Gili that comes through breaking oneself Iskafia, no previous they could change, but subjugation. He in the Gili Nali Yosef. He's a very lofty Gili. Who can also from the Zohar, the earth which is drawn down through a person subjugating himself, here once the mile of the Gili that is drawn down through his hapche, through engaging the Vishabamis and transforming him. So there is the empowerment before, and then there's the resultant hamshacha, and they parallel each other. Therefore, so Rashi says, I said Tosfos, it's Rashi, sorry. He also says, anyway, why is Chedesh Iyar called Ziv, even though the fish because in that month the Gemara stated the beautiful ones of the world were born. They were born in Nisan. That when the month of Iyar comes, explains Rashi, they're already born in Nisan. So Iyar is full of their light. In other words, Nisan is not full of their light because they were born in Nisan. There's part of Nisan that's not full of light. But Iyar is full of Ziv. By the time Iyar comes along, their light is already shining. Now the Tzarech Lavin had his Shaila. The fact that in the month of Iyar they were already present, that's only a result of being born in Nisan. So when is the light in the world? The light in the world is when? Is really a Nisan. Iyar is, and therefore Iyar is full of light. So Lama Nikra Iyar B'Shem Ziv. Why is Iyar called Ziv? The light starts in Nisan. You hear the question. It's only a consequence, but the emes, the Ziv, begins when they're born. Iyar by default.
Para 88.
Huh?
Para 88 makes the question stronger.
Yeah, clear clarifies the question. That by Moishe Rabbeinu, so it's the month that he's born. It was Chedesh Adar, Haman, right? So he was Samach Simcha Gedola because it's the month that he died, and why he was wrong because it's the month that he was born. So it's not the next month; it's the month that he's born that we're focusing on. So why also by the others? Why are we focusing on Iyar? The Ziv starts in this. But in light of what we said before, we have the answer. What do you mean by Ziv? That's a Gilish and Nimshach al Yedei Avodah. Nisan is their Avodah, and Ziv is the consequence of their Avodah. And that's the big. And what's the consequence? And what's the Chiddush of it? Sheyor ba'olam bepnimiyus of Yisyashvus. Their Avodah consequence, second month, second stage, result is a order that a gili, it's not a order, but the mile is it's nimshach bepnimiyus of Yisyashvus. V'agili the over zivisoni ha'olam bepnimiyus of Yisyashvus ba'olam u'b'chodesh shel la'achli shenoldu. It's after they are born, meaning to say the consequence of their Avodah k'shenischadish Iyar noildu kvar. When Iyar is renewed, comes into existence, Rashi says they were already born, meaning to say that this is the consequence of their Avodah. Hence, we focus on what? On Iyar, to bring out the point he wants to say here. The mile of what? Of Amshacha B'Pnimius. It's all the theme he's bringing out here. That it's Avodah Tzadikim. That's why it basically is built up again in the Chelik of Binyamin. It's not through breaking the world ultimately, but it's through transforming the world. And that's the Avodah of what? Of Tzadikim. And that's the Avodah of reflected by the Ovis. And the Chiddush, therefore, is the effect in the world. Therefore, we talk about Chedesh Iyar, not them, their Avodah, but what the Avodah achieved. That's the whole point. It's Bepnimius. And that is the Tachlis HaKavan. But we're not finished. Yeah, let's continue. Yisud Aleph. Yeah. That is the Achili Ben Agilishim Shechal David Tzadikim. So paralleling all of this Iskafi and H'tshek is also the difference in the Gili, which is drawn through Tzadikim, the Agilishim Shechal David Tzadikim. In contrast to the Gili that's elicited through the Avodah of Tshuva. Because now he used the language of Iskafi and H'tshek, and it's the same meaning. With respect to the level of the Gili, the Gilui that's affected, elicited through Tshuva is higher. But holiness in the world, permeating the world, not despite the world. This is the Rebbe speaks in the Sikha. This is Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva is the quintessential Baal Tshuva. Rabbi Shmuel, Kohen Gadol, Ben Kohen Gadol, is the quintessential tzaddik. And the Avodah is completely different. The Avodah of Rabbi Akiva is Mesiras Nefesh. His whole life he longs to die and give up his body and renounce the body. And he's tortured to death. Mind you, so was Rabbi Shmuel. But Rabbi Shmuel's Avodah is Nafke in the world. That's why according to Rabbi Akiva, they answered to all, in Atzeres HaDibros, they said yes to everything, because it's all bittul and Mesiras Nefesh. And Mashenk Rabbi Shmuel said, they answered Hein, and they answered Love. The Nekuda is Pnimius. This is a yes, this is a no. Not the bittul of the world, the engagement of the world. Vinyan continues now further to explain this chiluk, that the Gilui of the Baal Tshuva is higher. The Baal Tshuva stands at Tzadik Gomer, cannot stand. But the Amshach B'Pnimius, that's what's making Dira B'Tachtainim, is Amshach B'Pnimius. The home is not a place that you have to remember vattle yourself. On the contrary, the home is a place that expresses you in all of its detail. The Kivin in Tshuva in more detail now in the Avodah of Tshuva, in contrast to the Avodah of Tzadikim. What's Tshuva? It is very important. It's critical to the end. It's very nuanced. That Tshuva is all about what a person going out of his mitzias. He's breaking patterns, etc. So, what level is he mamshich? What corresponding level is he mamshich? He's mamshich atzmus ein sof, which is higher than mitzias. He's going beyond these whole identities till now. He's on mitzias. So he parallels in his mamshich a level of likus that's beyond the mitzias of Eilamus. Whereas the ocean, the tzadikim, the oil which tzadikim are mamshichu, not atmos ein sof, but they are mamshich and oil which is gili. Gili means it's apprehended and it permeates and it's internalized and it's experienced. Gam kishav shalem bebitul, and even though the avodah is bebitul, v'yosva anovim b'havaya simcha. That's avodah tzadikim anovim. So bittul means lachera going out of your mitzias. Where's the distinction between this and the Baal Tshuva? Answer. And bittul engenders taka a very big response, but still, we're talking here not about a bittul in the sense of the old mitzias is done away with, and like a newborn child. That's not the avodah of the tzaddik. It's this humility in his mitzias. And therefore, it's something that can be revealed and can be apprehended and can be absorbed and permeate, because we're not talking about bittul b'mitzias. We're talking about anov and bittul, but not changing a whole identity, a whole change in life. As he goes on to say, and that's the passage We brought earlier in the Alter Rebbe's Teich that the humble ones, who is that? That's the tzaddikim. That's their additional avodah. Stam avodah is tzaddikim. Stam gdulaschem, if you recall. That's stam avodah of tzaddikim. So the mitzvah is beautiful, fine and good. Gdulasi, that's v'yosva anovim. That's the avodah is tzaddikim with bittul. So what is that pearl? It pearls a sof and Shem Havaya. As he goes on to say the other day, through their Novim Bittul, still not the same as the Baal Tshuva, which is Bittul b'Metzius. But here it's humility. So Nimshach Tois v'Soir b'Havaya. So it's like a tremendous gilui. The Mamshich Tois v'Soir in Shem Havaya. So we're going higher than Ishtalshalas. So we've got to still see where this falls short of Avedis Habali Tshuva coming in a moment. He'll explain. The Visham Shochim made it some Shabbat Me'avaya. The Taka Mamshech had in Shem Havaya. At Mekomokim, the end of the day, Gamam Shochazu, he began their Giloi. Giloi means it can be accepted and revealed and can be absorbed by a Mekabel. That's the whole gather of Giloi, revealed. So their whole avodah is avodah pnimius, very lofty levels, transcendent levels, but nonetheless, because it's oir can be nimshach and a keli, as opposed to atzmus ein sof. In square brackets, or like we said before, Sev Gimel, the Ashleima there, we explained, Shinyan v'yosva novim b'avaya, the hisof, which the novim, the humble ones, add in avaya. What's that? Two amshachas. That's my gedula. Remember, understand the gedulaschem. We explained that the gedula overall is gilu, is his pashtos, lachashem, agedula, and there's two levels of gedulaschem, ishtamshalus, and gedulasi higher than ishtamshalus. But still good, it's still gilu. It's etzem achesed, and there's midas achesed, as I said before. Gedulaschem is midas achesed, gedulasi is the etzem achesed. But still, gilui, and therefore, if it's a gilui, it's oir, it's a nimshach and a pnimius, and that's what creates the dira. Concluding the square brackets, even the highest level of gedula, shaychli spashtus v'gilui, greatness means gilui, and if you're talking gilui, then it's apprehensible. It's already begetted. Being received. However, the pasuk concludes. The pasuk starts v'yosvo anovim b'vayis simcha, but v'yoni odom b'kadosh Yisrael yogilu. This is not kedula. This is kedusha. As you explained at length in the Maimah till now. Ha'etzem shemoved on megiloi. Kodesh means removed. The etzem fundamentally is beyond the gilui, as we've explained in the past. Etzem built in this gala. Who reaches the etzem by the Vedas HaTshuva? So it's a deep connection, but it's lost on the world. The world can't absorb this. Etzem built in this gala. Present, but no pnimiistic relationship. V'yesh levayir, and you can further beer. In light of that which is known, beautiful explanation now coming in the thing. Where's this from? Alter Rebbe. The famous teaching. What's pshat anova? What's humility? As opposed to the avodah of the Baal Tshuva, humble. He's not humble. He's ashamed and embarrassed. It's bittul b'metzius. What's anova? Not that he doesn't know his milas. He wants to bring out that anova is metzius ha'odam. He knows his virtue. Because Mokim in the he doesn't lay claim to it, to these virtues. Why?
It doesn't get to his head. It doesn't get to his head.
He doesn't grasp the Tov, he doesn't lay claim. Why? He's born with it. It's his doing. He's born with his talents and with his milas, and he's just working with it. What does this bring out? That anov is taka bittul, but not bittul mitzias. And that's he's saying the mila of it. It's the mila. It's the Maila of a Pnimis the get connection. The Kivin Shabitul Danova Einu Sheleles as Mitziyusai. Humility does not negate one's Mitziyus. In brackets, again, Sharu Yedeus Amayla Shalai. He's not going beyond himself, he's engaging himself, but in a humble way. He knows that his whole identity and all his talents is not thanks to him. It's the Eibishter granted this to him. So therefore, since it's bound up with his mitzias, but it's a humble mitzias, not a surrendered one, not going beyond, but an engaged mitzias. So what's that tzaddik being? What kind of relationship with the Eibishter is revealed, is engendered in the world? It's a relationship that pervades existence, doesn't negate it. It's expressed in his mitzias and expressed in the world. This is his ha'tshek. But still, the gilis at the end of the day is still limited. We're talking it's the shayrish. It's a very high level, but it's still gedula. We want to have the mile of both. That's what he wants to get to in the hour. But to reach Atzma Saint Sof, Kadoshi soul that is higher than all revelation, the Eibishter for who he is, not the way he relates to you in creation. We have the Abitul de V'yeni Adam. This is the Bitul of the V'yeni Adam, the second half of the Pasuk. What's Evian? Evian, he's impoverished. There's no milus. Not that he has milus, and the milus are mitzad alikos. Milus. He's no milus. He's ashamed. Shame by Shumaila. We'll see how to Evian as opposed to Oni means he lacks everything. Oni lacks some things. But Evian is Toyev, Lashon Taive, desires the whole dover. Everything because he has nothing. So Shame by Shumaila is no mile at all. Who battle Mitziyusai. This is Mamshich, the Etzem, Kedosh Yisrael. And of course, the Maila is both. That the Etzem should be Nimshich Lepnimius. We just said that's not possible. So wait till the end of the Maimah, which based on Hashem, we will conclude tomorrow.